recording. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to go ahead and call this regularly scheduled June 26th Commission meeting to order. I have no amendments or changes to the published agenda, so the first thing I'd like to ask is for approval of the agenda as it was published. I have a motion from Commissioner Martin, a second from Commissioner Mazon. Any comments or questions from the dais on the motion on the floor? Public comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. I'd like to invite Reverend Minister Marsha Lee to give tonight's invocation for us. If you would please rise for the invocation and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Minister, thank you for coming tonight. Thank you, Minister. We don't have any presentations tonight. We have one proclamation. We're going to do this a little bit differently tonight since tonight's a little bit special. I'm going to ask Travis if you'd come on up and say a few words about Blaine to his family and to the folks watching at home, and we'll get to the proclamation after.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Commissioners. It is my pleasure to speak tonight about my former work colleague and friend, Blaine Roberson. We have two special items tonight. The first being a resolution designating Blaine Roberson Field at Jimmy Durden Park. That's actually a picture of Blaine mowing at Jimmy Durden Park. And it was really high, and he mowed the other field, and I was supposed to be mowing that field, and then I mowed his initials in it. And then I called him over, and I was like, hey, man, look what I did. And then he freaked out. He's like, you can't do that. Everybody's going to see that. So that's him, like, really fast trying to go cover up his initials. So, yeah, a little story behind that. That was Blaine. Blaine joined the recreation. I'm going to read directly from this so that, get through it. Blaine joined the Recreation Department on June 11, 2012, and served as a public servant with unwavering dedication. and commitment, bringing immense value to our organization and the community. Blaine's contributions have left a lasting impact on the community we serve. With his can-do work ethic, Blaine consistently went above and beyond to fulfill his duties, personifying the true spirit of public service. Blaine's commitment to public service was an embodiment of his selflessness, and his valuable contributions to have elevated our organization and set a high standard for public servants to follow. Blaine was super dedicated. Before I dig into that, from the time Blaine retired to the time till months ago, I would routinely get text messages from Blaine for things around the city that needed to be repaired. Or I would just get a picture, and then I'd text him and say, what needs to happen here? And I wasn't the only one. Mike would get those too. So he was working up until months ago. He brought immeasurable value to his family through his love, dedication, and unwavering support. As a devoted family member, he consistently put the needs and well-being of his loved ones first. He was a pillar of strength and stability throughout the adversity he experienced. Blaine's presence brought joy, laughter, and a sense of security to our lives. His legacy will forever be cherished and serve as an inspiration for years to come. Blaine's dedication to his community was unmatched, fighting his health battles while still working to care for the community of Newberry. If you knew Blaine, you knew he was going through a lot of struggles and showed up here every single day. He taught me, most importantly for me, how to be a better manager, stuff that I'll take with me forever. So we are dedicating the newest field that we are working on currently at Jimmy Durden Park, Blaine Roberson Field. The image that you see up there is going to be what we place on the field, and I have this as a copy for you guys to have, just so you can keep it with you. And we're going to formally dedicate it on site once construction is completed. The second item is a proclamation designating October 17th as Blaine Roberson Day in Newberry. Mr. Mayor, if you'll read that proclamation.
I would be honored to. Whereas it is with profound sadness and deep respect that we pay tribute to a dedicated worker who served our city government with unwavering commitment and professionalism. And whereas Blaine Roberson was a beloved member of our city government team, dedicating 6 years of his life to the betterment of our community. And whereas throughout his tenure, Blaine demonstrated exceptional dedication and passion for his work, consistently going above and beyond the call of duty to ensure the efficient functioning of our city government. Whereas Blaine served as a true public servant, diligently carrying out his responsibilities with integrity, honesty, and a steadfast commitment to serving the best interests of our citizens. Whereas Blaine was not only an exemplary employee, but also a cherished colleague and friend to many within our city government family, offering support, guidance, and inspiration to his fellow co-workers. Whereas the loss of Blaine leaves a profound void within our city government and our community, and his contributions will be remembered and appreciated for years to come. Whereas it is fitting and proper that we take a moment to honor the memory of George Blaine Roberson and express our deepest condolences to his family, friends, and colleagues during this difficult time. Now, therefore, be it resolved, I, Jordan Marlowe, Mayor of the City of Newberry, do hereby proclaim Wednesday, October 17th, 2023, as a day of remembrance and reflection to honor the life and service of George Blaine Roberson. I urge all citizens to join me in paying tribute to this dedicated public servant and in offering support and comfort to his loved ones. In witness whereof, I have hereunto set my hand and caused the great seal of the city of Newberry, Florida, to be affixed this 26th day of June, 2023. We have some of these for the family as well.
So we have proclamation here, and then we'll also have
No pressure, but if you want to say anything, you're welcome to it.
I mean, Blaine loved the city, and like you said, he definitely went on his walks from our house in Newberry Hills up all the way to the intersection a lot, and would definitely find things to email or text Travis or Mike or give a call or a picture and say, hey, this needs to be fixed, or one of the bathrooms at the park with the kids. He loved you guys. He loved all of you guys, and he loved working with you and seeing you every day, even after he didn't work here. And so I just really appreciate you guys loving on him too. And thank you for everything.
Well, we do, and he's missed. Well, these are always solemn moments, and so I don't want anybody in the family to feel like they have to stay for the rest of the meeting. So, but we'd love to have you, but if you'd like to go, if you'd like to step outside, read, we understand that. Don't feel at all like you need to stay. And we hope we'll see you all at the field dedication when that field is constructed. We all look forward to that. And this time, we always set aside at the beginning of our meeting opportunity for public comment. Your commission likes to hear from the public frequently and often. We try to make it where you don't have to wait till the end of the night. So we set aside 2-minute public comments now. If you have anything that's quick that you want to talk to the commission about, doesn't have to be on the agenda, now's the time. If you have something you need a little bit more time, there's another time at the end of the meeting for public comment. You have 5 minutes at that point in time. Do we have any public comments? Come on down, Brian.
Mr. Mayor, normally I would wait till the end of the evening, but I wanted to get it at the beginning of the evening while people are still watching before the game gets really exciting. Just want to remind everybody that
right now?
some game. We have tomorrow night is the second public open house for the comprehensive plan revision input from the community. Contrary to some postings on Facebook forum, it's not meant for the elected officials. However, of course, you're always obviously welcome. But this is where the public has their opportunity to come in sort of without influence to give their input on how they want to see the community grow. And so I just wanted to remind everybody it's tomorrow evening at 6 o'clock across the way in the municipal building. A little bit different format this time. It'll be a presentation style format and then questions and interaction afterwards. So just wanted to remind everybody in the community that that's coming up tomorrow night. And if you've got an opportunity, please come out. We'd really like to get your input and how you want to see the community grow.
Heard nothing but great things about the first one. Very well run, very informative. So, Chief, I appreciate you being here tonight. But we understand if there's other things that you need to be, other places that you need to be. Okay. Okay. All right. Any other public announcements? Yeah, we'll give you another standing ovation here. Any other public announcements? Okay, now I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as it was published. I have a motion from Commissioner Martin, second from Commissioner Clark. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Brian, why don't you come on back down and lead us through what we have been patiently waiting for. I think this is going to be exciting for me anyway. I'm a government nerd. I like this kind of stuff. This is our first reading of the Newberry Urban Service Area Boundary Amendments.
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
Right. Always takes a minute. There we go.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Mayor, so this is the first reading of ordinance 2023-21. It's the ordinance that would amend the urban services area boundary.
Jenny, his clicker's not working.
Yeah.
So he may need some assistance.
When he does this, you do.
Yeah.
That's the sign. You're like pitcher catcher tonight.
I've gone down to, and it's not going.
Frozen up a little bit? Okay. Okay, as a weirdly, oh, okay, she's doing it. So just a quick recap, urban service area is a tool. It was created by the Florida legislature to help local governments control their growth and contain it to areas that they think are appropriate. It's a designated geographic area within a municipality, so it's not the entirety of the municipality, it's within the municipality. And it's the area where the commission believes they want to see growth occur over the next 10 to 20 year time horizon. It allows for better planned urban growth, preservation of the rural areas, which I know is very important to our commission, more efficient service delivery, because if you grow in a more compact way, it's less expensive to provide those services. Efficient resource utilization, you're not scattering your resources through urban sprawl far out. And generally, it's considered to provide for more enhanced livability, because you're making those more compact environments where it's easier for people to find all the services they need in a small area. So back on February 10th of last year, Commission held their first public workshop on whether to revise the urban service boundary area. Took citizen input. A series of 5 potential new urban service areas were developed from those meetings. And then after several more public discussions on the proposed amendments, Commission directed staff to draw up the amendments and basically get away from the circle that we have now, the radius area that we have now, and instead take that radius and turn it into actual parcel lines following the radius as closely as possible. And so here's the picture of your existing urban services area. It's roughly a 3-mile radius around the centroid of the city of Newberry. This superimposes the proposed change on top of that existing circle. And as you can see, it follows pretty closely the existing boundary, and then without the existing boundary overlaid on top, this is what the proposed urban services boundary would look like. Now, of course, because of our enclave issue, there's a lot of unincorporated Alachua County in there, and none of this would apply to them unless they annexed in, which of course we're always working to bring those enclaves in. But that's the current proposal before you. Still, of course, subject to further discussion by the commission and direction from the commission. So staff's recommendation is to discuss the proposed boundary adjustment and approve on first reading ordinance 2023-21. Once it is approved by you on first reading, then it will go to the state. It is considered it's a comprehensive plan amendment. It'll go to the state for their expedited review process.
Okay, so we spent a fair amount of time on this. We borrowed it in the tables. People came in with Sharpies. They drew out, then we kind of superimposed those, and staff came back and said these were the shapes that the public was thinking about. Then we talked about it, I think, in 2 separate commission meetings. So we've been working on this for a lot, with an awful lot of public engagement workshops where we just focused on this. And the lines that staff is presenting to you now is pretty much what we got out of all of that conglomeration of public input and commission input. So it's not exactly what any one person up here had down, but it's kind of the compromise between everybody in town, really, because I think that you guys pretty much went with the public comment more than your own comment on this one. Any other comments about this? It's been about a year. Commissioner Clark?
I would say that actually I just talked to Brian Pryor, and I was out of town, and I'm sorry I didn't go to him last week before this came out because I was gone. But it's not a big deal one way or the other. Staff's done a great job with this. But I do remember, and Brian said he looked back in some of the comments about going down 202 and making things squared off instead of through the boundary lines out here on the 202 and 46, which Brian says it ain't a big deal to change that before this thing goes down range.
We can still make that. That's what we're doing right now.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
But so and I talked to Brian, it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
But I did say, for me personally, why don't we just go down 202, which would be Newberry's main corridor, and down 46, which is a main corridor, instead of all through the farmland on that particular corner. If we can do that, I'm all for it. If there's some big way that we cannot, then it's up for discussion. But, and also, we were talking about on 46 and 2741 north toward High Springs, with the big development coming to going across the road to encompass the same land that the construction company was wanting. In case we have a school or a fire department land given to us, it will already be in for the area. That's all, that's only two things I had. Everything else looks great. And like I said, it ain't up for, I mean, it's not a big argument point, just something I thought we should change now.
I'm kind of on the same page that Commissioner Clark is. In my mind, just for communication with the public, I always think it's easier if you can say 202, 46, and then you don't have to worry about, well, my parcel, my farmland is here, and I'm out, and that guy is in. How am I supposed to know that? But I'm also, we've spent so much time.
Yeah, I'm not trying to
On
reinvent
this,
the wheel, just
But, and I know there was some, well, we're trying to follow the existing radius that we had, but that when I go back in the history books, they just kind of put a pin in and a circle. So
yeah.
I don't think there was a whole lot of thought given to it before. So, and I know that northeastern section is all mining. There's not a whole lot can happen up there. I thought we already, to your second point, Commissioner Clark, I thought the northern boundary already encompassed the potential,
It's
land.
about 99%, Mr. Mayor. There is, to Commissioner Clark's point, there is a small piece that juts up a little bit beyond 46th. Yeah, it's not much, and so we could,
I would do it. We
Bring
know
that
that
up.
one's coming. We don't know that it's approved, but, it seems like that we would have to go back, and that would be a stumbling block if it's just a little nudge up. Any other thoughts, Commissioner Martin?
Remind me again why we care about this thing.
uh,
I mean, it's already in the city, but really,
this
I don't remember exactly.
The urban services boundary basically limits how far out the commission can, or the city can extend water and sewer services. And so it basically puts a hard stop on any dense development outside of that area. Helps
Unless-
protect the green belt.
It's a line in the sand
Right,
saying, here we grow,
right,
here we're ag.
right. Okay, all right, thank you.
Even though there's a lot of ag in.
Right. Any thoughts towards 202, 46? I mean, it seems like we have a real easy way, at least in that corner, to make it along road lines. Anybody want to make that change? Anybody want to go up north just a little bit so that that's done if we need it?
Again, I don't know that in the next 15 or 20 years we'd ever get to that corner anyway, so.
I think.
Well,
in
it's just
50
such a
years.
state thing
Yeah.
that if we didn't do it now, just figure that
You know,
there's a
I'm in-
potential for a school, a fire
I'm
department.
indifferent. If we were gonna move it that way, it is much easier to communicate to residents,
Yeah.
unless there's some compelling argument one way or the other.
That's really
I
my
don't know.
only is just how do you communicate the area to the residents? If I can say, I seem like I spend so much time just trying to tell people who services them, whether they're in the city, whether they're in the county, whether they're in the urban services area, not in the urban services area, who their electric provider is, yeah. But at least then I can say 202, 46, or, where are you at from those? I see Commissioner Coleman is
Yeah,
gone.
I'm all for that. For the reason is, all this, just go straight down 202, cut over to 46. And there you got that square.
Yeah.
And
So-
that corner is particularly easy because all of the property that would be encompassed is within the city already. There's no enclaves in that area.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other areas, it's a little more iffy because of the enclaves that exist if we squared it all off.
Well, you can also square off up there towards Hell, because you got, you can go straight on up 202 to there, and then cut straight over, well, I don't know if there's something, but you gotta go
Are you
across
talking
the
about
railroad.
South 46, all the way to the county line?
I'm talking about 202 up here in the corner,
North.
north.
Mr. Ware, the 202, where you see there where the line cuts back to the west, that's where 202 terminates at northern 46th.
Right, and you take a left there by the motor
Gator
scooter
back,
place.
yes, sir.
Yeah.
So there's no roadway to follow going north, I guess was my only point there.
So I've got two commissioners who say just square that 202 to 46, one who's indifferent. Anybody else got fine with squaring 202 to 46? Commissioner Farnsworth,
And put our little top.
you're indifferent as well. And everything else, and then we're gonna encompass that 4 parcel to the north, just so that we don't have to deal with that again.
Mr. Mayor, staff supports the ones, especially to the north, and ask the commission to strongly consider that. Changing this map requires us to change our comp plan, which means we'll have to send it off to, who we sent it, DCO? DEO these days. They change their name enough, I didn't keep up with it. And, that's a 4-month process, and we know that this development's coming. Again, as you said, it may not get approved, but it'll get its own hearing. But if it is approved, we would follow up subsequently to say we gotta change the comp plan to include this, and it would be a delay to that.
And what we're talking about, you don't have a laser that works on this, is the northern section, middle, right where Commissioner Coleman is pointing over to the,
Yeah, right.
Right.
Go
Keep-
up a hair,
Right there.
right in that area.
yeah, so we're just gonna go
Yep.
right around, but we'll still follow the parcel lines that would potentially encompass it.
Mr. Mayor,
Commissioner Martin?
do we have, are we sending it to DEO in between readings, or are we sending it after the second reading?
No, sir, we have to send it to DEO for their review, their
After the first reading.
review of impacts to state resources.
So in
And then,
between?
in between, we wait for them to get back up to 60 days. And then once we get that back, schedule the second hearing. And then once it's approved, we do send it on, but just the notification of ordinance approval.
Well, hey, let's go ahead and square up the north.
Commissioner Coleman, hang on,
Sorry.
he wasn't, he was still talking.
Oh, heck with him. So go ahead, sorry, man.
Oh, now he's done. All right, Commissioner Coleman.
Up there in hell, I mean, 202 goes, I mean, there's a parcel line that goes straight on up. There's a parcel line that goes right here, straight on up. And it goes straight over, except for this one parcel, right here. So why don't we just go straight on up and square that off too?
Isn't that a mine?
Huh?
That's a mine though, right? I think we were just saying that we were cutting out the mining, cause we already know what's gonna be developed there, mines.
It's, the home, that's where Gatorback is.
Yeah, all
You've
that's
also
there.
got,
It's right there in hell.
Is Gator back inside that where Commissioner
is.
Coleman is outlining?
it is, it's within that area not enclosed by the current proposal. Also, the zip line
Zip line's
part
right
would be,
here.
right, yes, sir.
So let's square this off.
All right. Squares work. Indifferent or support? Okay, so we got 2 squares. So, along that line,
I got more squares.
why can't we just go west to the county line and just square that off there?
That's what I'm for, man. You know that.
Right now, the way it's configured, it incorporates a lot of unincorporated Alachua County areas, but that's sort of the nature of the beast because we have a lot of enclaves and fingers. If you look like, for instance, in the southwest corner, if we were to cut all the way over, it wouldn't really make sense because all of those properties we'd be incorporating, almost all of them, are in unincorporated.
Okay, all right.
And
So let's square off the 2 eastern corners and we'll get the 4 parcels. Staff need any more direction to get this thing
no, sir?
to a conclusion?
I have a question.
Commissioner Farnsworth,
Does the city of Gainesville have an urban reserve area?
they do.
And
It's the whole city.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's all, their entire city limits.
Typically, I mean, being a municipality is, is defined as the urban services area. That's what, incorporation kind of represents. However, this conversation started with the commission having a thought of preserving a green belt because we are so vast. It's uncommon to have this many ag properties want to annex in through voluntary annexation. And so this was a way to allow people that want to be part of our city to be part of our city, while still ensuring that we're preserving a green belt.
And the county has an urban service area as well. The western portion is just past Publix, right? It's
Correct.
like,
Yep.
there's Broad, what's that?
It's approximately a quarter mile outside of the Gainesville Urban Services area as it goes
Yeah.
around.
So as long as the county doesn't extend their urban service area any further west, and we hold that eastern line, then there should be a relative green belt in between us and Jonesville. And as you guys know, most people that live in Jonesville either think they live in Newberry, because it says Newberry, 32669, or they think they live in Gainesville. So the whole idea of preserving that green belt is to preserve a character of Newberry so that you know when you have left Gainesville and when you've driven through some agriculture space and when you've come in to Newberry.
We have a sign out there that says Newberry City
Working on
Limits.
that now, yeah.
I could,
Hang on one second.
that'd kind of be the idea that I was coming
Yeah.
into Newberry because there's a sign.
Yeah,
But anyhow, so
except Newberry starts like 3 miles east
the sign,
of that sign, yeah.
but we need to move it then.
Yeah. No, we ain't moving that sign.
I'm talking about the little sign.
Oh, the little one, that one's
Yeah.
not even right.
Oh,
Yeah, the little green one, it's gotta go further east now too.
okay, we need to move it.
We just poured the concrete today, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
One day
He's
too
talking
late.
about the little bitty
I
green
know.
sign.
Roadside.
So how does GRU run sewer and water, or sewer and electric and everything out there into Jonesville?
They got there
The
first.
short answer was they worked with Alachua County and they worked out an interlocal agreement. For the long answer, city manager is far more qualified to answer that.
Yeah. I think it's basically
hurts
they
me.
got there first.
That hurts me, Tim.
All right, I'm just a little hesitant of restricting our abilities to extend our city further west, that's all.
Well, west
I mean,
is to
no
the
west,
county
I'm
line.
talking east, I'm
Yeah.
talking east, I'm sorry.
I mean, I agree with Commissioner Martin that with our current urban service area, we've got room to grow for I would say the next 50 years, we got room to grow, right?
Probably 100.
And after the visioning session that we did, we spent a year of workshops talking to the community. After all of that, we've spent the last 3 years talking to our community about what they want. And that green belt is I think definitely the top 3 of what we heard from the town is we want to keep some distance in between. And I don't think we have any problem with growth. We've got plenty of room to grow inside that urban services area. And I think the main concern is that Newberry Road that's where everyone's gonna wanna develop.
Right.
And will be swallowed up and you'll never know when you've left, cause people don't know when they left. Gainesville doesn't start till I-75, right? Actually, I think they moved it a little bit now, but.
Tower Road.
Yeah, so, but people think they're in Gainesville when they're in Jonesville, right? And that's what we heard from our residents, they don't want for Newberry. People want to know that Newberry is a separate city, we're not part of everybody else.
I got a question.
Hang on one second, were you done with your concern, Commissioner Farnsworth?
Yeah, I guess for now.
All right, Commissioner Goldman.
Does this put us in any legal type issues that say that, cause we can't provide, any type, I mean, right now, up there towards Hell, we can't provide anything up there, you know what I'm saying?
No, I'll let Scott jump in on it, but this just says if you want to run sewer up
Our
there,
intentions.
right, we
Okay.
intend to let you if you want to pay for it, but it doesn't put us responsible for running the sewer.
You said it exactly right. That's your intentions, is where you plan to grow with your urban services, is what your intent is.
Okay.
And if you got $5 million,
exactly right, if you wanna pay for the sewer lines and there's grants or whatever that can go out there, and at some stage, if you have something just outside that line, there's nothing that says you can't move the line potentially as well. So you control it, but it's the objective and the intent.
I think the
I
other
was
thing
gonna-
that an urban service area does is that it says, we want to develop from the center first. So we don't want a spot develop all over the town. We want to grow from the inside out. So once we have filled up that urban service area, 50 years from now, a different commission can decide, okay, we're satiated, or we want to move the line and we want to keep on growing, right? He will. Brian?
That was the exact point I was gonna make, is
Yeah.
it's always up to the commission to amend the urban services boundary at some future date if they desire. So it's a constraint, but it's not an absolute constraint. It's always up to the commission.
Okay, so we've got two changes, eastern corner, northeastern corner, we're gonna square those up. And then the 4 parcels, 3 changes, and everybody is either indifferent or fine with it, with those changes. Okay, so, and staff is clear on the 3 changes, all right? Do we have a proposed motion that you can put up there? Oh, I'm sorry, please, yep. I
This
got
ordinance-
jet lag from driving too much.
Ordinance number 2023-21, CPA 23-09, an ordinance of the City of Newberry, Florida, amending the ordinance number 4-91 as amended, relating to the amendments to the future land use plan map, future land use element, and sub-elements in urban services area boundary of the City of Newberry Comprehensive Plan under the expedited state review amendment procedures established in sections 163.3161 through 163.3215 of the Florida statutes, providing severability, repealing all ordinances in conflict, and providing an effective date. Appropriate motion is pass ordinance number 2023-21 as read by title only.
All right, so we have the ordinance read in, staff is clear on the 3 changes. Do I have a motion? So moved. I have a motion from Commissioner Coleman, a second from Commissioner Clark. Any final comments, questions, discussion points from the dais on this motion on the floor? Public comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Hang on, Brian, we have 1 public comment there. 2 minutes. No.
I'll be quick. It's just more of a clarification. This probably is not the appropriate time to bring this up. Not really questioning the boundaries. But my question is more about, I'm sorry, my name is Paul Hornby. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Commissioners. My question is more within the service area itself. Is there any consideration, you might have already just answered it, is it the city's intention that for development standards and densities, they would be all the same within this 3-mile area? And I've already made this comment to the comp planning workshop, but it would seem fitting to maybe draw a couple more circles within this, not so much for legislative actions, but just internally, when you're contemplating development, that, you know, within the core of the city, kind of the infill cluster, that's where you pack everything in there, right? Your retail places, your different kinds of cottages, townhomes, whatever. But then as you move further out, I would think aesthetically, keeping the country sort of etiquette with the city, that, you know, lots maybe are a little bigger as you move out. It just seems 3 miles out to have a development that's super dense, 0 lot lines, looks like a development that should be in Gainesville, out on the edge of this, doesn't seem right. So I don't know if this is something more for planning and zoning. Like I said, I did make these comments at the comp plan review. Maybe that's part of that process, but I just thought I'd ask that question. Thank you.
No, it's a good question, it's a good point, and we have actually talked about it. We have lots of different zoning packages that developers can take advantage of. 2 of the packages that we've had occasion to discuss, rural plan development and small scale rural development. actually aren't allowed inside the urban service area. And it's something that I think we should consider. So we have, no one's yet taken advantage of the planned rural, I'm saying that wrong. What is it, Brian? It's rural planned development, planned rural development.
Close.
Yeah.
Planned rural residential development.
Thank you. I knew there was another R in there somewhere. That's the one where if I have 100 acres and I could build one house and a septic tank per 5, we say, okay, you can cluster 20, right, on 20 acres, 1 acre lots, but then you have to leave the other 80 in agriculture in perpetuity, right? The small scale, like you guys just did, y'all just looked at that one, it's 2 acre lots, really nice, beautiful. I don't know if you've driven out there, but there's got the road in there. I love it. And I think that what the resident is talking about, I think that would look great on the outskirts of the urban service area, right? I could totally see something like that happening, you know, inside the urban service area, kind of on that outskirts. And it, you know, I think you get nicer homes, you get those larger lots, but right now that's not allowed, right? Or is it just the PRRD is not allowed inside the urban service area?
Actually, Mr. Mayor, neither are isolated
allowed.
outside. We are planning on making those changes when
Right.
we realize the LDRs.
So those are two packages that I think we should consider allowing inside the urban services area that would address exactly what he's talking about. But that would be for tonight. That would be more of an internal conversation of we want to encourage these developments inside the urban service area, but sort of to the outside of the inside, if that makes sense. Okay, any other public comment? Thank you for that. All right, I have a motion on the floor, properly seconded. No more public comment, no more dais comment. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. That's gonna move us to item 6 tonight, which is text amendment to chapter 38 of the City of Newberry Code of Ordinance. What's the score?
Us.
Well, then it's 2-0 then, yeah. Yeah, you said 0-2, you made me think we're behind. Okay, all right. What are we doing now, Brian? See, you done confused me. Go ahead. Talk to us about fireworks, Brian. 4th of July is upcoming.
That's right. And unfortunately, this will not be finished in time for that, but
Next year.
next year it'll apply.
Well, we got, new year, but
We got
before
close.
that, maybe for 2024.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. We have drafted an amendment to our ordinances, 2023-22, which would amend our current fireworks ordinances. Staff doesn't really expect to get a final decision tonight or necessarily, but we wanted to get this back on the commission's radar and go ahead and get through. Staff went back and listened to the video from the last meeting. It was fairly lengthy and in-depth about the fireworks ordinance that we currently have versus the fireworks ordinance we might want to have. And so this is a reminder, in 2020, the legislature didn't actually mandate that communities had to allow for these holidays. They suggested that these were become allowable holidays. If the community already had a prohibition, you could still maintain that prohibition, but they strongly encourage everybody to allow for these 3 holidays, to have some level of fireworks display. And so New Year's Day, Independence Day, and of course New Year's Eve.
Brian, I'm gonna interrupt you just 1 second, because we don't really have any new commissioners up here, but I can't remember who was on the dais last time we talked about this, but fireworks, immensely controversial. I know that we don't have anybody in the audience right now, but when we go to make these changes, depending on the changes that we're talking about, this place could be packed, right? So as we go through this, I'll try to point out, and I know Commissioner Clark used to run an event center, so you got a different perspective on it, but the people that have cows and horses vehemently opposed to fireworks, people with autistic children, veterans with PTSD. There's a whole lot of people out there who are really, really opposed to fireworks and the noise, right? So I was not prepared. I thought fireworks were just fireworks and weren't that big deal. I got a very quick education on how strongly people feel about fireworks. So what Brian is talking about, we will have to make a decision at some point of how we want to proceed. And I think that's kind of why we haven't brought it back, because there's just been a whole lot of nuances to this conversation. So go ahead, Brian, and
Thank you,
let's
Mr. Mayor.
reopen this can of
Exactly.
worms.
That's right. So, the proposed amendment as it stands right now is very simple. It makes accommodation for those 3 holidays for private fireworks displays only, whereas right now we have a blanket prohibition. So that would allow those 3 holidays for private only, private being, the stuff you can buy at the tents, down at Phantom Fireworks, whatever, not a public professional display. And in fact, it does not include any provision for a big public display. So that's something we'll circle back to. And then it does add language saying that if your homeowners association has a restriction, that can be maintained by the homeowners association. A little nuance of the state statute says if you don't already have a prohibition, though, you can't create one that also doesn't allow on those 3 holidays. So new homeowners association restrictions would have to include those 3 holidays. And then there was discussion, even though our code says there's no provision for fireworks at all, we had kind of an odd situation where there was a charge for the fire chief to inspect a fireworks display, which didn't really make any sense because our code says you couldn't have one. So it eliminates that inconsistency out of the code. Now, some ideas or some issues to discuss further. Would the commission want to have a provision for a professionally done fireworks display? And if so, would that only be contained to the urbanized area, or would that be allowed somewhere? Originally, the big discussion as part of the last discussion was the commission had just approved a one-time fireworks display down at the mine. Seems to be a little bit less of an issue now, but conceivably it could be out at the mine. It could be some other large parcel that's, that the owner wanted to have a big fireworks display on. So if the commission's will is to have a facility for a public display, would that be limited within the non-rural, non-agricultural, heavy agricultural areas?
I get fairly frequent, I don't know, once every 2-3 months requests from event centers, Rustic Oaks, not necessarily the owners of the event centers, but the people that are doing events. I'm doing a wedding and I want to have fireworks. I never had that much money to have fireworks in my wedding, but I guess some people do. But most of those wedding venues are kind of rural, right? They're outside with, people that are living in the country because they wanted to be quiet. They got cows, they got horses, those kinds of things. So, when Brian says, do we want to allow it in urban, I think what he means is not necessarily the urban services area, because there's, as Commissioner Coleman said, there's an awful lot of ag in the urban services area. I think he means our true urban area right down here, right? If that's the case, well, then that kind of cuts out Clark Plantation, Granville, Rustic Oaks, right? Because they're outside of the urban dense area, right? But that also, you could say, well, the liability is on them. They've got to inspect it. They've got to, they've got to handle it. So these are the kinds of things, requests that we get, and I think they give the customers my cell phone because they're tired of, the bride saying, I got to have fireworks, and they're saying, well, call the mayor, because we can't do it. So.
Another consideration is, just learned recently that, as an example, Devi Temple uses fireworks as part of their religious festivals occasionally. Now, they don't use the kind that explode, so you don't have the loud booming. They just use the fountain of sparks kind of thing, and maybe some that whistle kind of thing, but they don't do it seems to be the explosive, the mortars and the loud, M80 or greater size, booming fireworks that cause most of the problems. And so actually everybody who was there, the last discussion is still on the dais. So if you remember, one of the gentlemen that came up and spoke from the public was a fireworks display provider, and his tended to be on the lower scale, but he did make the comment that it's very hard for somebody like him to do a display without the exploding ordinance, that pretty much everything that they fire up in the mortars is going to explode. And so do we want to allow, again, for public display without the, the exploding ordinance going off?
Mr. Clark?
So, I mean, this thing's going back to up at Holt's, they did it every year. Without a permit. It exploded for an hour and a half. And then it was over, but everybody loved it. I mean, it was July 4th stuff. So. From who? You had it?
His brother.
Yeah, anyway, I never heard a complaint. I was just a civilian. I wasn't on the dais. So anyway,
got
but my point is, they did have them.
Most of the time, most of the city.
And, yeah, for 4th of July, for sure. So in this rule here, they would still be allowed to have that type of event or none?
No, sir.
They weren't allowed to have that there. It was a private thing.
Well, it sure brought people from all over to see it and to recognize us. You know, we sing a song about stuff bursting in the air for a reason, but, for that particular date. But anyway, so in this rule, the 4th, New Year's, and what else was it, Brian? The 4th.
December 31st.
And the first day, so
Oh,
31st and the first,
First,
and
yeah.
then George
And
Floyd.
that's in here to be able to do that?
For private only.
Oh, for private only.
Private only, yes,
So
sir.
that would be considered private out there?
That's
Inside
how we looked at it.
inside of our city?
We looked at that
That was a
event as a
private event.
private event.
He just let people come.
Mr. Mayor, not private in the, actually, I forgot. So here's your difference in the definition. So private display basically means, like I said, the low hazard consumer grade that you can go buy.
This is way above that.
That was way above that. The Holtz actually had a
All
federal
about how you
license.
look at
They
it.
did.
Yeah.
They were.
All about how you looked at it. Right.
So here's what's considered private.
All the small
Private.
scale stuff you can
Yeah.
buy.
If you can buy it at a store,
Yeah.
that's a private. If I have to have a license to go buy from a distributor, right, a commercial grade kind of stuff, the big stuff.
I'll be honest with you, I just come back.
Have
from
you guys got your mics on? I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I just came back from Alabama, and if I'd have brought those back with me, they're big time.
Yeah.
So I don't know if Florida eliminates them up there at their big warehouse or not, but the mortars are the ones that really, go up and put off the color and give you the boom, and those are the big ones. So a mortar is a mortar, just some a little bit louder than others.
We got-
Anyway, I'm
we
all
can
about it for the
continue-
4th of July.
We can continue to approach it as we're just gonna see it as we see it, right? But we do have businesses that are asking us to clarify
We need a rule.
So I would say, we need to stop kicking this can. We either do or we don't, right?
We need to do it.
And
So-
the further question would be, so as drafted right now, it allows for private display, but do we want to limit that further to say, but only within the urbanized area? In other words, if you're zoned agricultural, you're still not allowed to do it. You can only do it if you're zoned commercial or residential, non-agricultural, basically, to prevent any further disturbance to livestock and
Well,
whatnot.
wouldn't we need another line then if we said, we'd have to define on a map what is the urban area? So you can do.
That's why I say by
private display.
zoning. If you just went, if you're zoned ag, you can't do any display at all.
And without a special exception.
Well, that would be up to y'all to put that in, if you wanted to make a
Mr. Mayor,
special
one more.
exception.
Yeah.
Because I did own the wedding venue, we went through this. I was about to get arrested. Jim was gonna arrest me one time when I came back from out of town. The mortars went off, horses went through the fences, cows went through the fences. Anyway, I was getting a big, to-do. Anyway, regardless of that, it was a professional shoot. The guy actually come out, it was, 3 minutes for this wedding. I really didn't know it was a professional shoot, but he did it. And, after that, we stopped the mortars because of the horses down the road from us that, you know, they went a little crazy. But you can have fireworks, but it was all the ones we were just talking about. They could do, there's many guys around here that sell these boxes and they do the sparkling and the everything, but they just don't shoot the mortar. So to tell somebody they couldn't have a fireworks at their wedding, to me, seems a little over. I mean, you could take out this mortar thing, but fireworks in general, some of them you don't even know they're there. 10 boxes go off, it's just a shower of sparks and it's over with and you're done.
Brian, there's
So-
gotta be a city that has written up an ordinance that addresses these kinds of things. It says it can be private, you can't do mortar in agriculture, but you can have I just don't know how, and I remember that guy that came and talked to us, that was what he was speaking to as well, was how to write it up where you can have a nice show at a wedding, but you don't have those big explosions that draw up. I just can't remember now exactly how he was delineating that. I guess the question is, we've heard from Commissioner Clark, we've heard from Commissioner Mazon, that we want to have it, especially on these dates, right? And I think we all want to have it on those dates. But that show out there that Holtz put on, that sucker was, that was a big show. I mean, that was really nice. But it seems to me like if you've got the resources to put on a show like that, you're probably hiring a professional anyway. The question comes when, somebody is like, oh yeah, I just went to Alabama and now I'm bringing in, what happens then? And I'm always also curious how you regulate these things in the end, because we never find out about it until after it's all done, right? And the horses have gone through somebody's fence and they're in my pasture over here, and now everybody's mad. And we say, well, our rule says you can't do it. Well, what happens? Well, we go tell them they can't do it again, right? That's all that really happens.
And staff has thought a little bit about that as well, because that was part of the discussion previously as well,
Right.
was enforceability. The argument against some regulation would be, you can't enforce it anyway. It's unenforceable. The other side of that argument, though, is if you have it on the books, most of the time you're not going to enforce it because it's small-time stuff. But if it's on the books, it allows you to go after the large people that abuse the rules and put together something, way bigger than it should be in an area that's not appropriate for it. Still gives you the ability to go and shut that down if necessary.
I mean, right now, if we leave it alone, we could have gone out there and shut down the Holtz at any time and said, nope, not in the city of Newberry. Can't have fireworks, right? So, I mean, the question that we have to decide is, do we want to have some way that we can facilitate some of these wedding venues to have some small-scale stuff, right? Do we want to have an ordinance that people can go through, right? I think whether it's you can't do it or here's the ordinance, if we say you can't do it and they do it, then we could go after them if it was really a bad situation. If we have a rule and they don't they don't come to get the permit, same thing. Hey, you could have followed the rule. You chose not to, right? Commissioner Farnsworth, you look like you wanted to.
Yeah, so, I mean, currently we have, in the ordinance, that they have to come and get a permit for, I thought that we did.
Currently, right now, the only problem that we have right now is you can't do it at all except for private on those 3 days. But we do have another somewhere in something, LDR or something, that says you gotta pay for our chief to go out there and inspect it.
Because I hear
That's a conflict.
I hear fireworks like every other weekend or so, east of town, so somebody's shooting fireworks.
I live next to the pickets, and they're always shooting, and it sounds like fireworks.
I was gonna say, it might not be fireworks.
It's fireworks, but I mean, I'm okay with, I think that, somebody's gonna be doing a professional venue, I think they should get a permit from the city for that. And as far as the exemption for the designated holidays, I'd like to see like Labor Day and, Veterans Day added on to it. So that the, citizen, if somebody in the city of Newberry decides they wanna shoot a few fireworks, they can.
I would say if we allow special exceptions, I'd like to do it where it's at staff level. People don't have to come here. We'd say, these are the parameters, right? The chief is gonna make sure there's no mortars, that it's professionally done. but you don't have to wait for a commission meeting to come and ask for it and those kinds of things.
You mean if I want to shoot some fireworks, I have to ask permission?
If you're talking about a big show like that, if
No,
you're,
I'm talking about like, I just went to Alabama, got me some nice little mortars. and I wanna
right
shoot
now you
them.
can shoot private, I don't know about from Alabama now, but if I buy it in Florida, under Florida regulations, on those 3 days, I can shoot them off, right? In Newberry. Any other day, we don't allow it, not by special exception, which I don't know how we gave ourselves a special exception, because we were gonna do it that one. Well, it was our 125th year anniversary.
And as far as urban people, we're talking about not allowing people to shoot them out in the urban area. I mean, the only thing they have to do is sign a form that says they're doing it to scare off the birds or something of that nature, and they can still do them, I think, by state law.
I don't know about that, but.
To Commissioner Farnsworth's point, when you go to one of those tents, or you go down to Phantom or whatever, they have you sign a form saying that you're using it for an agricultural purpose, basically.
But not at night.
Well,
I guess I've never bought fireworks out of a tent before, so.
Ever see that movie, The Bird
Hey, you
Man?
can be scared of cows.
You're not, birds don't fly in the blueberries at night.
I can say I would like to have something where we could shoot off in Newberry professionally. Personally, if somebody wants to put on a big show,
Yeah.
and it's a professional show and the public's allowed to come, I'm all for it.
See, I agree with Commissioner Mason, and I also agree with Commissioner Farnsworth. If it's Veterans Day, if it's 4th of July, I mean, these are random holidays throughout the year. I think where the people that have the $1 million horse that's getting upset or the child with a disability that is afraid, I think, they have more of an argument when it's happening all the time and they don't get an advance notice, right? So if these are the holidays and everybody knows these holidays are the holidays, then it's kind of announced, right? It's part of the public record. The thing about the special exception, at least if we know about it, then we can advertise, we can let folks know, hey, take your kid out to go see a movie that night. At least you have some kind of advance notice. Commissioner Martin, you've been waiting to get in.
I don't know if it's just me tonight, but I've totally lost track of what the hell we're talking about. Like where we are, where we want to go, and what's in the middle. I feel like we are a
That's
friggin'
exactly the question we're asking.
firework, and then
Where
we're
do you wanna
just
go?
all over the map.
Do you want to let fireworks happen in Newberry?
Yes,
Okay.
I'm fine with that.
All right, so we've got 2 that want to let fireworks happen in Newberry, 3 that want to let fireworks. Do you want to let fireworks happen at any given point, or do you want to designate it to just certain holidays throughout the year?
I think respective would be to have certain holidays.
Okay, so certain holidays locked in. Do you want to allow for special exceptions for big events that are not part of those?
Yeah, I'm okay with that too.
Okay, I got 3 head nods. No, I got 1 Commissioner Coleman.
I'm for open carry, so, I say anytime.
Okay, so I have at least 3 head nods, 4, because one's a wild man down there, for we want to allow fireworks to happen in Newberry. We want to pre-designate certain holidays, right, that they can go off. And then we do also want to have some process that people can go through to have a special exception to have it for a big concert comes into town, something like that. No, and I say for that special exception, again, I want it to be, yeah.
Focus.
Commissioner Farnsworth?
And you gotta have a definition of fireworks. I mean, a sparkler is a
Well,
firework.
that's what we're gonna get
Here we go.
for the mortar, that's the whole mortar conversation that's where we lost Tim, right?
actually,
Is-
Mr. Mayor, the
No,
state
you lost me
does
about 30
a
minutes.
pretty good, the state does a pretty good job of defining the different
You're
types
right.
of fireworks. So
You're
we
right.
can use the state
I think
We
you
definition.
can use the state definitions
You
for
can,
what
you can do
counts.
Class C anytime.
See, now you're already talking over my head. I don't know what Class C, is that the sparkler?
Has to be a sparkler, yeah.
Okay, Class C. I'm good with Class C. Okay, so I got 4 head nods. Okay, I think we're pretty much unanimous, right? Yep.
Do we want to limit the professional displays to the urban area, not allowing them out in the more rural area?
Well, see, and that's where I think we have to there has to be some sort of, if you have them in the urban area.
if it's gonna be out of the event venues, if there's a possibility to avoid the noise, that's what bothers the animals, right?
Mr. Mayor, I was actually thinking that we do something a little specific to the event venues that allowed for fireworks without the exploding
Without the
ordinances.
exploding ordinance.
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess my question is, Scott, have we changed this enough that we need to read this ordinance in, or do you?
We need to,
you-
staff will
you-
go back and,
Okay, so this is just
Rewrite
gonna be a
this whole thing.
conversation tonight. This is just conversation, but you've got enough direction to give us some text
yes, sir.
next time so that we can read through it and know exactly what it is. Cause I get that Tim is lost right now, but I'm just telling you, whenever this is on and we're gonna allow fireworks, we're gonna have some people that show up here and they're gonna be upset. Because this was a surprisingly emotional issue last time. Yeah. Okay, so we're just gonna move on from this, you're gonna bring us back. We said you wanted Veterans Day and Memorial Day?
I think Memorial Day is more of a morning
Solid.
thing. I don't think it need to be shooting fireworks on
Labor
Memorial
Day?
Labor Day though.
So Veterans Day and Labor Day.
But I'm also in, yeah, birthday. I'm also with Commissioner Coleman. Anytime be fine with me, but,
All right.
I mean, if I had a birthday party for my kid or something, I'm gonna shoot a few fireworks, I think I should be able to, but hey,
So everybody can go to Commissioner Farnsworth's house and shoot fireworks
I'll just give 'em-
anytime they want to. He said so.
I'll,
All right. I'm going to move us along to our first agenda item, ratification of agreement between the City of Newberry and professional firefighters of Newberry, local number 3852. Chief, are you, you can put the shades back on if you want to. You've had a rough day.
I'll let y'all look at, no, this is another day.
Oh,
This wasn't from today.
motorcycles?
Talk back to his wife.
Yeah, talk back to the wife. No, I tripped over a curb. That's what happens when you get old. And you're walking with your hands in your pocket, so you can't catch
Yeah,
yourself.
All right. Tell us what you and
Okay,
the
we got,
union came up with.
Got PowerPoint up here, mayor, commission.
Yeah, the click can work sometimes. Try it. Yep. Did you do that or she do that?
She did that one. Okay. Hey, there we go. So we're here to try to ratify the 2023 collective bargaining agreement between Local 3852 and the City of Newberry. You can go to the timeline. We'll talk about the introduction, the timeline. I want to cover some of the wins that the union's going to get, that they're happy with, and we'll talk about where we think the city won. Some of them are win-wins for both. And then we'll get into the step plan and the cost of it, because that's kind of the most important thing. The negotiation team, of course, was the city manager, myself, Dallas, Tracy, city's attorney's office, and then our consultant, Brian Koji. So this is just the timeline. The last one was 2016. We've opened it back up in March of 2022, and it took us a little over a year or so to get there, but we're finally there where we think we're in pretty good shape. So today we'd like to present some of the bullet points so y'all could ratify it. So for the local, they really wanted to go to a step plan. We did that behind closed doors and discussed it. There's another slide for that we will talk about, since it's so significant. The paramedic stipend, of course, is in there too, and we'll talk about that one. The grievance process, there were some minor changes. We just kind of went over and mirrored the counties. It made it easier for the county people to understand it. We moved it from 5 days to 14 days. Basically what that means is, in the current CBA, if something happens, they only have 5 days to grieve something. So this will give them more time to come to us with a problem. Their annual leave can be requested up to 96 hours in advance. as long as it's not causing any mandatory overtime. So we don't want somebody to come up and say, hey, I'm gonna take next shift off, and then somebody else gets mandated. But we said as long as it doesn't cover mandates, we're okay with it. The 5 shifts that they can bid in October for the upcoming year, currently, they only can put in for vacation time on the 20th the month before. And as we all know, it's kind of difficult to schedule for vacation. The senior guys really don't care either way because they get whatever they want because it's all done by seniority. But our younger guys, might want to take 2 weeks off. And right now, they would have to beg, steal, and borrow to ensure that they could get that much time off. So we came up and we said, okay, we can do that. The next slide.
And Commissioner, if you got any questions, let's stop them on the way. Before we try to remember and come back to it.
The current system with the mandatory overtime, it kind of gets slammed on all the firemen, and they get beat up with it. We have some firemen that are getting mandatory overtime 300-something hours a year. So they've asked if we could just spread it across the board. So if there's a driver off, we wouldn't move everybody up, and then the firefighter has to get it. It's like, okay, the driver can get it this time if they have less hours. So it'll all be done in a fair, systematic way where we'll try to get their hours in. The firefighters are still gonna get more than anybody else because there's more of them, which is normal. They can defer, which means they can turn down mandatory if it's a department-sponsored class. So if I pay money for them to go to paramedic school, I can't mandatory them, okay? Paramedic school is very stringent, and you can only miss so many days, so it's falling in line. They're like, well, I'm not gonna go to paramedic school because if I get mandated, then I'm gonna get kicked out of school. So we agreed to that one. Layoff, which typically don't happen, but should there be some layoffs, it used to be 12 months that we could call you back, and they wanted us to up the ante a little bit to 18 months, so we agreed to that. 2 sets of bunkers, we're almost there anyways. I think I got 1 or 2 that only have 1 set. This is following the firefighter cancer initiative, which basically, the fire that they just had here at Southern Fuel, that crew will come back, they will take all that stuff off, get into a new set, and they'll wash that set. So they're not constantly breathing in carcinogens, and we're not throwing it back in the cab for them to breathe. FMLA, they want to use sick time. Right now, FMLA is 12 weeks. As you know, in the fire service, people get hurt or other things like that. So they're asking us if they could at least use their accumulated sick time or vacation time to get them to 6 months so they can heal and come back to work. And then we also discussed that, if there's any extenuating circumstances to where that rehab's gonna be longer or something like that, as long as we can confirm that they're not extending it out just to not be at work, that would be the fire chief and, of course, the city manager's decision to allow that for them. They can trade days to work days as long as it's in the same classification. But with paramedic coverage has to be the dominant force. So I couldn't have a paramedic trade with an EMT if I can't get paramedic coverage. I'm not sure if y'all are aware, we had a trade program for the last 20 years with the county where we relied heavily on them to give us one of their paramedics, and we put one of our firefighter EMTs on the ambulance to drive. And then that way our engine was advanced life support when that ambulance is out and about and gone, because they go to the hospital and all that. Well, we've made steps now, we're covering 2/3 of it. So we cover B and C shift, A shifts, we're still relying on the county. Our goal is by October of 24, right? October of 24 to have that resolved. So it's of the utmost importance to be able to, when we have those paramedics, we gotta be able to cover for them, because we have to provide ALS. And then they can, and to avoid a mandatory overtime, we can let them work down or up, okay? All right, now the good stuff. This is that benefits us, I think, a little bit more. This one right here, I think, is pretty significant. It's the preamble. And it basically, they cannot grieve Article 1 anymore. Article 1 was the catch-all, be-all. So if there wasn't a specific thing that they wanted to file a grievance on within the CBA, they could just go to Article 1 and throw an arbitrary a grievance at us. So we were able to get them to walk away from that. And it's like, no, if you're going to grieve something, it's got to be a violation strictly in the CBA that we violated. One of the things that y'all have spoken about is the fairness, not just from the firefighters, but all employees, right? So we were able to get them to, if they get terminated, they would, no matter what they got terminated for, they would get paid all their sick time. That's not the way it is with all the employees. All the employees, it's based off of what classification you get terminated in, what group offense. So we're gonna go, just like all the other employees, they're gonna get in line with them. Jury duty up to 5 shifts. If it's gonna be longer than that, they're gonna have to ask to be recruised. If they can't, then we'll negotiate with them on how they're gonna get paid. We can't have somebody in jury duty for 6 months, you know, we're running a 24/7 business. Another one, sick time currently in this current CBA counts as time worked. So if somebody called off sick today and then got overtime tomorrow, they would get paid time and a half. So that is, they have agreed to give that up. So now it's, if you call off sick, you don't get overtime in that pay period, unless you bust multiple shifts, okay? The 198 rule was basically geared to guarantee them 198 hours of overtime before we could start hiring part-timers, so they agreed to give that up. So there's no more 198 rule, they're not guaranteed to get anything. We'll just do it by the order of who's got the most or the least, and that way we can still use the part-timers a little bit more. On all overtime, paramedics will be considered. If I don't have a paramedic available because somebody took off, then the overtime will be given to the paramedic first so we can cover ALS. Another one here, across-the-board adjustments in pay provided to non-bargaining unit members. So when all the other employees got some kind of a kick in pay, they were always guaranteed it. Well, we're doing away with that. They got their CBA, so this is what they abide by. The promotional requirements changed, several of them within the promotional class. To mention one of them, we have 3 classifications of firefighters, 1, 2, and 3. Right now, in order to promote to lieutenant, you have to be a driver for 2 years. For the foreseeable future, and Dallas isn't here, but he'll tell you I want like 50 fire stations, but should we open another fire station, when I only have 1 fire station, we might not have enough qualified people that are drivers, so it would allow the firefighter 3s who have all the training anyways, and they're capable of riding in that position as well. The senior lieutenant's position, which we have, we're gonna abolish it and do away with it through attrition. So when senior lieutenant fire leaves, then we will not promote for that position. Next slide. Yep. Well, we're hoping here to possibly have an assistant chief of some sort or a captain or something like that on the administrative side to help me. Lieutenant Fire ain't going nowhere for a little while, so, but we wanted to make sure that we got that in the contract so we can do away with it. Promotional dates, we just moved it from 60 days to 90 days just to speed things up. There was a provision that all promotional exams would be given to Newberry firefighters first if we should have to go outside, so we did away with that. And again, that's more looking into the future if there's going to be new fire stations or anything like that. Currently, layoffs, they have to be called back in order of seniority, and when you start looking at it, it's like, dang, we lay people off, we're going to have nothing but officers working. So we're able to the current employees get to stay like that, but starting October 1st of 23, anybody hired after that date, if we lay people off, then the city gets to call them back based off of our needs, not their needs. And that would help with paramedics or specialty skills that they might possess. We reserve the right to have an occupational health and safety committee, which is extremely important. Another big win is insurance is the same as all the other employees. We got that wiped out. So big win for the city. We also were able to put in there that we have a right to put a staffing position in there to decrease overtime, so we can decrease all the spending. Next. Okay, the step plan, that was the big thing. We already spoke about this, but I think the one thing that's really important is evaluations still play a role in this, okay? They do not get a raise unless they meet expectations in order to get that raise. So we're not just handing money out just because you've been here for 2 years. You're gonna have a good evaluation, and then, okay, you can go. The step plan in itself is a 2% increase over each year of service. The pay increase impact on this budget that we're currently looking at is gonna be $90,000. Some of them are getting pretty nice raises. You know, we looked at the whole industry standard, you know, and so what we came up, this is what they wanted to, and we looked at it. It falls in line with the minimum wage standard. Okay, the first year, new employees will be at the $14.25 mark, and then at year 2, they'll be at $15.25, so we get to the minimum wage. So it all falls in line with that stuff.
So Chief, is there a cap on the salary,
Yes,
or
yes.
what's the current cap?
So once they get 25 years of service, if they're in that rank structure, then there's no more cost of living adjustments. They basically can get 2% each year for the first 10 years, and then they have to wait, then it's more like 1% a year, but you don't get it until you hit milestones of like 15, 20, and 25 years.
Mr. Mayor, just to add into that, we didn't change the upper pay of the pay range. If during this step process they hit the top of the range, they stop there, and at that point would only get cost of living adjustments that the pay range receives. So when we apply a cost of living adjustment, we apply it to the pay range. So your top of pay may go up 2%, and they'd be entitled to go up that 2% with a cost of living adjustment. But everybody in the city has a top of their pay range and can't be paid beyond that.
Is there do we do a community wage adjustment at any point in time? Or is there a study that does community wage adjustment?
We are in the middle of a salary survey currently. We've gotten the first draft of a report, should have something to present to the commission in the next 30 or 45 days. And then the staff would recommend, the commission would approve an adjustment in pay scales, this community across the board type thing, and we would apply it to firefighters if they were below scale.
I know when we were talking about this, that if we did the merit increase and they passed their budget with the union, their pay thing, then they don't no longer get a merit increase. This is straight 2% based on their union contract.
Yes,
And then they do get COLA though.
yes, if the commission
Along
approves
with
the
everybody
COLA,
else, they
then
get their
they'll it.
COLA.
Yes,
And then we give some of the merit, so in the last couple of years, how does it increase our budget 90,000? Is that per year starting now, or is that over time?
no, it's adjusting the whole pay scale because it's moving some of them up that haven't really made
Just,
anything.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
I mean,
No
I
big
can't
deal.
present the math right here, but I would say that over the last 5 years, the merit increases that all city employees have received, including fire departments, have exceeded 2% a year. So this generally is considered, it's a trade of what they historically have performed at for some guaranteed money.
yeah, so they're basically trading for that. All right, next. The paramedic stipend, as we discussed, paramedic school is extremely difficult. It's way more hours.
The standard out there that we found was between $8,000 and $12,000 a year. Alachua County currently pays $7,500 a year, that's fixing to go up. We proposed a $10,000 annual stipend that'll be broken out into 26 equal payments. And with us moving to the ALS, it's a more of an incentive trying to get some of our EMT employees to look at that money and say, hey, it's about time that I go ahead and make the commitment to go to that school. I don't know if maybe I mentioned before, we ask about EMTs and paramedics. There is a significant difference in the level of care that they can provide to the citizens. Okay, next. Okay, that's it. So that's the presentation. Do y'all have any questions of me?
Commissioner, got any other questions we didn't hit? I just want to say thank you again to our negotiating team. I think that what you presented is fair to our fire department, and it's fair to the other employees, and it's fair to the residents, and it's what the commission has come to expect from you guys. And once again, you have brought us forth a contract that hit everything that we asked you guys to take back. Please express our gratitude to everyone who compromised and worked to bring forth something that I think we can get behind. But I guess we're about to find out if we can all get behind it. Okay. Do we have anything we need to read in to the record for ratification of this agreement?
Nope, just ratification of the agreement, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Do I have a motion to approve? I have a motion from Commissioner Martin, second from Commissioner Clark. Any final comments or questions from the dais? Public comments or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Well done. And that's going to take us to the League of Cities. Always a good time that I can never go to.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It is a very good conference, and League of Cities offers it annually, hence the name Annual Conference. It's always in August, and this year it's going to be located in Orlando. Trying to get to the staff report where the details are.
First week of school.
What's that?
It's always the first week of school for me. So
There you
I
go.
can never go. So, but I was able to go one time a decade ago.
It's the Hilton Orlando Bonnet Creek on August the 10th through 12th, which is a Thursday through a Saturday. So they'll cover all the important legislative issues that are coming down the pipes, challenges that Florida cities right now, population growth would be a big one. Property rights, property taxation, how we generate revenues is always the top issue. Insurance, great point. And so any of our elected officials, the 2023 budget includes funding for one of you to attend. We could make it happen if more than one of you wanted to attend. But if any of you'd like to attend, I think your backup information has the registration sheet and all the pertinent details. If you'd like to attend, let staff know, me or Randa or really anybody know, and we'll get you registered for the really good conference. And if you register, this is a limited time offer, then I think you'll go right to the top of the nominating list for the selection as the City of Newberry's voting delegate once you get to the conference. Because I think on Saturday morning of the conference, they will propose their annual slate of ideas and legislative ideas and things they want to get accomplished, and they seek representatives from each city to sit in and vote on those issues, and we need a voting delegate.
There'll be 30 to 60 people in the room voting, so it's very rare that any one vote makes a difference, but it's possible.
Should be hundreds. There should be 400.
But when they break into different committees, they break it up into smaller pieces. Anybody know, or can look on the calendar, can attend, has any interest? Again, it's great to meet people.
I'm already going to one conference, and
Me too, and
I've been watching somebody else take it.
Savannah Bananas.
All right, if anybody could look at the, Mike, we have staff that goes and represents as well, right?
Yes.
We just can't nominate them to be a voter.
If, I believe, I mean, in the past, y'all have asked me to,
To be the voter delegate.
agree to be the voting
Nobody,
delegate.
nobody can go. We appoint Mike as the voting delegate. He's gonna
Okay.
look at his calendar. All right.
Okay.
All right. Tim, any bill?
Man, I can try to go.
Okay. All right. So Tony, look at your calendar first. If he can't go, we'll reach out to Tim. Bonnie? All right. So the recommended action is Commissioner Maison is going to get with the city manager. If neither Tony or Tim can go, then we appoint Mike as the voting delegate. So we don't have to talk about this again. Yeah. Right? That's right. Mike, you need anything else?
No, sir, not on that.
We need that in the form of a motion?
Actually, yes, in form of a motion,
All
if you
right.
guys don't mind.
So what I just said, so moved by Commissioner Martin, seconded by Commissioner Coleman. Any comments or questions for the dais? Public comments or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Yes. All right, and Mike, you're gonna pitch it for Dallas. Tell us about this exciting possibility.
Absolutely. So we've had a number of conversations over the last few years about potentially restoring our historic power plant to make it accessible to the public and that we can get more public benefit. Actually, at our last city commission meeting, or the one prior to that, we did an update on what we think the projected cost might be and what some ideas are for how we would get there. And we submitted a grant application. The grant application seeks $695,000 to do the things that we talked about: restrooms, parking areas, handicap parking, new doors, new windows, and by the way, it has a new roof on there. So we're getting there little by little without the grant, but we turned in the grant application. They loved the grant application and got back with us immediately and said, we ask that you guys pass a resolution pledging to be the 50% sponsor if you get the grant, which is what we had always intended, but it also, you're used to having, if a grant application is being considered, if someone says, yeah, we're gonna award you, you guys are used to having an off-ramp in case our priorities change. And I just wanted to assure you that we still have the off-ramp if you approve this resolution, that you are tentatively pledging the 50% grant match. When we get an actual award, if priorities have changed, the commission would be within its right to say, no, we're just not going to be able to make it happen, and we would communicate that to them. But they have asked us to pass a resolution saying, as things stand today, that the city would raise the money. Now, staff, without trying to jump into budgeting issues now, the improvements that we have shown you through the years have been about $700,000. So we've just about covered them with the grant. And of the ARPA funds that are out there, we still have a little more than 200,000 that have not been allocated. There are probably some other projects out there that might be divvying for those funds. I don't want to say that that's for sure it, but if we come back, and these grants are pretty competitive, but if we're fortunate enough to get a proposed award, then we will have a very detailed plan for what would we do with the 50% match, which could include asking someone in the private sector that wants to take use and control of the building to say, hey, we're able to get you $700,000 of improvement for $350,000 for half. Does that entice anybody in the private sector to want to do that? So I think we have some options available to us, but for today, the Department of State, which is reviewing our grant application, needs this resolution, and that's why it's before you.
And I would say that we have at least two people who are waiting intently on the RFP for that, who both would be very appreciative of $700,000 of improvements for half the cost. So. Right, two that really want to see the RFP, want to put in an application, but both of them recognize that that facility is going to need a lot more money to bring it back to life than what was originally presented to us 3 years ago. You know, everything's gone up, so any help that we could get them, you know. Let me have Scott read the resolution in, and then we can ask for a motion.
Mr. Mayor, this is a resolution of the City Commission of the City of Newberry, Florida, authorizing the pledge of $347,500 in grant matching funds to the Florida Department of State Division of Historical Resources for the Historical Resources Special Category Grant and Aid for the Historical Power Plant Rehabilitation Project, providing for the city manager authorization to sign the related documents, providing an effective date, and for other purposes. Appropriate motion is to pass the resolution as read by title only.
So moved.
I got a motion from Commissioner Farnsworth, second from Commissioner Mazon. Any final comments or questions on the motion on the floor? Public? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Manager, you got any comments tonight?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, I do. Just a couple reminders of calendar events, that these are all on your calendars. This week, on June the 27th, as Brian mentioned, we have an open house. That's tomorrow night, open house on our comp plants in the municipal building at 6 p.m. And then on Thursday night, 6 p.m., we have a budget workshop. We're going to be doing phase 1 of our CIP. We got enough CIP projects to talk with the commission about for probably at least 2 workshops, potentially 3. We're going to keep it segmented so that it doesn't get too crazy confusing. So that's Thursday night, 6 p.m. Same bat channel, all that things right here. And then on July the 12th, which is about 2 weeks out, we'll have a budget workshop on governmental funds. So that's kind of the budget calendar for the next 4 weeks or so. The July P&Z and HARB meeting has been canceled. Lack of applications more than any other reason. And then on our next city commission meeting would be scheduled for July the 10th. That is our joint meeting with the Alachua County Board of County Commissioners, scheduled for 7 p.m. at Easton. We've set the agenda based on the feedback that you guys gave us. Met with the county manager today, and we got the agenda set. I'll get that published and out to you guys as quickly as possible. And then the following week, I will be at the FMEA conference, as will Rance, as will Commissioner Clark and Commissioner Coleman, be at the Florida Municipal Electric Association's conference that week. Then just to report, are you going to report on the DC trip?
You go ahead.
Okay, the Mayor Marlowe and Commissioner Martin and I traveled to Washington, D.C. to meet with legislators about the 2023 Farm Bill. We met with Senator Braun, who is from Indiana, Senator Boozman from Arkansas. Actually, we met with their teams. Senator Rubio's team from Florida, and Representative Thompson. We actually met with him from Pennsylvania to ask that they ensure that the Farm Bill includes funding for regional ag tech, food tech hubs. Regional, we mean on a statewide basis. So no promises. Actually, I think I thought to myself as we were coming home, or discussed it with them, the real work starts now. We've planted a seed. Now we got to spend the next 4, 5, 6 months cultivating it like crazy to get that funding in there. I think if the funding's in there, I think the chances that Newberry would be successful in securing some real money to make an ag tech park go are very high. But getting it in there is probably going to be a formidable task. Great work on our team. One of our our consultants, Kamal, attended with us. I was really impressed by the caliber of the discussion that was occurring there. I'd say probably the only downside to the whole trip was that the mayor scheduled to take 4 200-pound watermelons up to DC, and then said, "Hey, Mike, I can't get them. Can you take care of them?" And so I lugged those suckers all up and down, and DC is all uphill. It's like going to school when you're a kid.
Trying to
It's
get him back in
all
shape.
up, exactly. So, but I will tell you, they were very impressed with the fruit baskets that we took and the watermelons, and we had a good time. Learned a lot about the Farm Bill and about the legislators that meet. Got to see a great baseball game. And Representative Kamick, I should have mentioned, we weren't meeting with her. She was meeting with us and other people. Did a heck of a job selling for our district, trying to bring some of our federal tax dollars back home to Florida. If you see her, make sure you give her appreciation for all of her efforts on our behalf. And then just finally, I would tell you that we have been working with nearly a year, a company called New Cycle Energy. They make an alternative energy product that right now mostly cement plants are using to burn in their energy producing turbines in lieu of coal. And they want to get into the power industry, so we went down, toured their facility. It's about half the size of what they would propose to bring to Newberry. There's about 105,000 square feet of production area there. They propose to do about 200 to 250,000 square feet in Newberry. They've got some legislative support, and we are trying to help introduce them into the power industry. They need to pass a certain threshold on who's going to be purchasing this product for them. Once they lay some groundwork and get some contacts in place to purchase their product, then they plan to make an investment in Newberry and become an industrial partner with the city of Newberry and our city limits. Mr. Mayor, that's a very long amount of comments, and I appreciate the commission's timeline for allowing me to do that, and I'm available for questions if you have any.
It was a good trip to DC, and I would say if the Farm Bill passes the Senate, Newberry is in line for some exciting things. But there's a pretty big difference right now between the House and the Senate on the Farm Bill. So reach out to your senators and say, hey, we need to work on figuring out a compromise here between the House and the Senate, but the Farm Bill needs to pass. So that was my big takeaway, and if we ever do that again, we're going to take something smaller than watermelons to give away as a gift. So thank you, Mr. Manager, Mr. Attorney. Thank you, sir. Madam Clerk. Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner Coleman.
9-2 LSU wins.
What, wasn't it like 24-0 yesterday?
That was a problem.
They wore out from hitting the ball.
That was a problem. Their arms swinging, shoulders, and all that.
Commissioner Clark.
Nothing, just, God bless America, and I wish the Wagner Group would have went on to Russia and took Putin out, so that's my 2 cents on that one.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Farnsworth.
God bless America, and do you know why Marines have brass buttons?
Why? I think Commissioner Clark does. I don't know that this is appropriate to say in public. I'm a little nervous.
To button their coats.
Thank you. Commissioner Martin? Commissioner Maison?
Yeah. I have a couple. Our staff got a compliment. I saw Barry Kelly at Hitchcock's today, and he told me, he said, man, the city has a great staff. He's came up to get a certificate, notary. And he said the staff handled him well, from Janine all the way into Judy. He said he spoke with everybody inside, and he said they treated him like he was a king. He said he appreciates it. And I wanted to say that downtown Main Street hosted their 2023 banquet, and it was great. It was a nice turnout. Were you there? Absolutely, I was there, man. The food was great. I didn't eat any of it. I got there just like in time for them to finish and start the banquet. But so, and hey, Monty, so what did one hat say to the other hat? You stay here, I'm gonna go on ahead.
I want to add my gratitude to Representative Kamick. She took us up. She helped us organize a lot of that on the city side, but she also, at the same time, she rolled out the red carpet for some of our leaders at Newberry High School. We sent up the FFA president, the student body president, senior class president. We had a couple football player captains come with us. She gave them private tours. She took them around town. She really gave them an experience that they're going to remember for the rest of their lives. So I just wanted to publicly say thank you for not just her work for the city, but for our kids. I'm hoping that we can turn that into something that we do for all of our leaders on an annual or semi-annual basis. I saw a great post about Veterans Memorial Gala that has now been set. I think it's November 17th. First day of the rodeo, so you can go to the gala, and then you can go to the rodeo on the next day. Just don't knock that over, Mike. They also have on the website now, which is www.newberryveteransmemorial.com. You can go ahead and put in your order for your brick now. They have lots of options. From 8x8 to 4x8, you can put the seal of the branch that your veteran served in. Again, the 4x8 bricks are $50 each. The 8x8 bricks are $100 each. If you signed up for a brick at the festival, they'll be contacting you to let you know how to do it. They are also volunteering to do it for you. If you don't like to do things online, they just want to make sure they get everything right. We'd like to make a big push through July, 4th of July. Let's support our veterans. And so I'm not sure if we have the link up onto the city's website yet, but we will get it linked there. But you can go directly to, one more time, www.newberryveteransmemorial.com, and you can handle it all yourself. I think you can also buy tickets to the gala on that website. And we'll be spreading all that information on PayPal. I feel like I've been traveling for the entire month of June, so I'm just kind of getting back. But I did spend pretty much all of today on the phone. And just to piggyback on Commissioner Maison, I received, 10 complaints about people that thought that the city had done something wrong or hadn't followed a procedure or hadn't treated people. I tracked them all down to a T, every single one. Our staff acted professionally, did the right thing. It was just about getting all the details of the story together. So I would encourage everybody, as you field these complaints, when you go back to staff and you ask them what happened, keep that open mind, because to a T, every single one, once I got the whole picture, our staff had handled everything just right, just as we would expect them to, just like our fire chief did and our negotiating team did with the fire department. So I appreciate our team and how we can leave for an entire month and the city just keeps on going, right? Perfectly well. And that does it for me. Public comments? Hearing none, we are. She was riveted by the fire. Adjourned.